In the heart of Africa, in the prosperous kingdom of Muira, a grand celebration filled the air with music, laughter, and the aroma of roasted meats. The village had gathered to witness the union of Chisomo, the brave and respected son of Chief Tandwe, and Nyasha, a young woman known for her beauty, kindness, and grace. As the drums beat in rhythm with the joyous dancing, Nyasha stood by Chisomo's side, her heart swelling with happiness. She had married the man she loved, and her future seemed bright. The people of Muira quickly grew fond of Nyasha. She treated everyone with kindness, from the servants to the elders. She spoke with respect, helped the women with their daily chores, and cared for the children of the village as if they were her own. Even Muzi Sibona, Chisomo's mother, who was known to be strict and difficult to please, began to admire her new daughter-in-law. The villagers whispered among themselves, saying that Nyasha was truly a blessing to their chief's household. But not everyone was pleased with Nyasha's presence. Jatira, Chisomo's elder sister, watched from the shadows, her smile forced and her hands clenched into fists. She had always believed she was the most important woman in the family, second only to their mother. With her sharp tongue and commanding presence, Jatira had controlled the household for years. She had expected Chisomo's wife to be timid and easy to manipulate, someone who would bow to her authority. But Nyasha was different. Though she was gentle, she was not weak. She did not seek power, yet people naturally respected her. Jatira felt her place slipping away, and her heart filled with jealousy. How could this woman, an outsider, come into her home and win over everyone? How could Chisomo, her beloved younger brother, give all his attention and love to Nyasha? The more she watched, the more her hatred grew. At first, Jatira tried to ignore Nyasha, hoping that time would reveal some flaw in her character. But the days passed, and Nyasha remained as graceful and kind as ever. The villagers continued to praise her, and even the elders spoke of her with admiration. Jatira could not stand it. She began to look for ways to undermine Nyasha, to make her life difficult. She gave her the hardest chores, hoping to break her spirit. She spread small lies, hoping to turn their mother against her. But nothing worked. Nyasha endured everything with patience, never complaining, never fighting back. And that only made Jatira's hatred stronger. As the days turned into weeks, Jatira realized that small tricks would not be enough. If she wanted to reclaim her power, she would have to remove Nyasha completely. A dark thought took root in her mind, and from that moment on, she began to plan something far worse than simple humiliation. She would make sure that Nyasha disappeared forever. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the kingdom of Muira. In the chief's household, the air had grown heavy with tension. Jatira, with her sharp eyes and honeyed tongue, had begun weaving her web of deceit. She would sit beside Muzi Sibona, speaking in hushed tones, planting poisonous seeds of doubt in their mother's mind. "Mother," Jatira would whisper, her voice dripping with concern, "have you not noticed how Nyasha charms everyone? Even father listens to her words. She is clever, too clever. What if she is only pretending to be kind so she can take everything from us?" Muzi Sibona, already struggling to accept a new woman in her son's life, frowned. Though she had tried to be fair, there was something about Nyasha's quiet grace that unsettled her. Now, with Jatira's words filling her ears, suspicion began to cloud her heart. "You may be right, Jatira," she muttered one evening. "A woman so loved by the people can become dangerous." From that day, Muzi Sibona's warmth toward Nyasha faded. She no longer spoke to her with kindness, no longer smiled when she entered the room. The small gestures of love she once showed disappeared, replaced by cold stares and harsh words. She found fault in everything Nyasha did, her cooking, her chores, even the way she greeted the elders. The household, once a place of comfort, became a prison for Nyasha. Chisomo, unaware of the brewing storm, prepared to leave on a trade journey. He kissed Nyasha's forehead, promising to return with gifts from the neighboring kingdom. "Be strong, my love," he whispered. "I will not be gone long." Nyasha forced a smile, but in her heart she felt uneasy. Something in Jatira's gaze unsettled her, like a snake waiting to strike. The very next morning, Jatira saw her chance. She approached Nyasha with a false smile. "Sister," she said sweetly, "mother is unwell. The healer says only a rare herb from the riverside can help her. Will you come with me to fetch it?" Nyasha, despite her growing fears, could not refuse. It was not in her nature to deny help. So, she followed Jatira through the winding paths of the village, past the thick trees, until they reached the roaring River Kaluza. The water was dark and fast, crashing against the jagged rocks below. Nyasha bent down to search for the herb, her fingers brushing against the damp earth. That was when she felt it, a forceful shove against her back. The world spun as she tumbled forward, her scream lost in the rush of water. The icy river swallowed her whole, pulling her into its depths. Jatira stood at the edge, her lips curling into a wicked smile. "Goodbye, dear sister," she murmured. "Now the kingdom belongs to me." With that, she turned and walked away, believing she had silenced Nyasha forever. The river's furious currents tossed Nyasha's body like a helpless leaf, dragging her beneath the surface. Darkness swallowed her as she lost the fight against the water, her breath stolen by the icy grip of the river. Just as the last bit of air slipped from her lungs, everything went black. When Nyasha awoke, she was no longer in the deadly embrace of the river. She lay on a soft mat inside a small hut, the scent of burning herbs thick in the air. A warm light flickered from a clay lamp, casting shadows on the woven walls. Her body ached, but she was alive. "Ah, you have awakened," came a deep, calming voice. Nyasha turned her head to see an elderly man with piercing eyes and a long silver beard sitting beside her. His weathered hands stirred a pot of steaming herbs. Beside him stood a young woman with dark, braided hair, her face filled with kindness. "Where am I?" Nyasha whispered, her throat dry. "You are in Umvilo," the young woman said gently. "My name is Tiwani, and this is my father, Baba Gumbi. The river carried you to our shores. You are lucky to be alive." Nyasha tried to sit up, but pain shot through her limbs. Memories rushed back. The betrayal, the push, the icy water. Her heart pounded. "Jatira, she tried to kill me," she whispered. Baba Gumbi's sharp eyes studied her closely. "Yes," he said, as if he already knew, "but the river chose to spare you. Fate has other plans for you, child." Confusion swirled in Nyasha's mind. "What do you mean?" Baba Gumbi leaned forward, his voice low and knowing. "You did not come here by accident. The spirits of the land have guided you to me, because your journey is not over. There is a great reckoning ahead, and you must be ready." Nyasha shivered, not from fear, but from the weight of his words. She had been cast away like she was nothing, yet here was this mysterious old man telling her she had a greater purpose. As the days passed, Nyasha slowly regained her strength under the care of Baba Gumbi and Tiwani. But it was not only her body that healed, her mind sharpened as well. Baba Gumbi was not just a healer, he was a man of great wisdom, a keeper of ancient knowledge. He taught her about powerful herbs, about the ways of nature, and about the hidden truths that people tried to bury. One night, as they sat around a small fire, Baba Gumbi's voice turned grave. "You are not the first to suffer under Jatira's hand," he said. "She has done terrible things before, and the truth remains hidden." Nyasha's breath caught in her throat. "What has she done?" Baba Gumbi's eyes burned like embers. "That, my child, is what you must discover, and when you do, the world will finally see Jatira for who she truly is." The night air was thick with the scent of burning wood. As Nyasha sat across from Baba Gumbi, the flickering fire casting shadows across his wise, weathered face. She had spent weeks in Umvilo, growing stronger under his care, but nothing could prepare her for what he was about to reveal. "Jatira's cruelty did not begin with you, child," Baba Gumbi said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "There are others, women who suffered at her hands. The spirits of the forgotten cry out for justice." Nyasha's heart pounded. "Who are they?" she asked, leaning forward. Baba Gumbi sighed, stirring a pot of herbal tea. "Years ago, there was a servant girl named Tando," he began. "She was young, kind, and loyal. She worked in your husband's household, tending to the needs of the family. But Jatira, she despised her." Nyasha's brows furrowed. "Why?" "Because she could not stand anyone who was loved more than her," Baba Gumbi said. "One day, a valuable golden bracelet went missing. Without proof, Jatira accused Tando of stealing it. No one dared question her, not even Muzi Sibona. The punishment for theft in Muira was death." Nyasha gasped, horror gripping her chest. "But she was innocent?" Baba Gumbi nodded grimly. "The bracelet was later found hidden in Jatira's own chamber, but by then, it was too late. Tando had already been executed." Nyasha shivered. The thought of an innocent girl losing her life because of Jatira's lies made her stomach twist. "She must be punished for that," she whispered. Baba Gumbi's expression darkened. "That is not all. Do you remember Malika?" Nyasha's eyes widened. "Yes, she was once engaged to Chisomo, but she became ill and died before the wedding. She did not fall ill, Baba Gumbi said. Jatira poisoned her. The world seemed to stop. Nyasha's breath came in short, sharp gasps. No, she murmured, shaking her head. Jatira could not bear the thought of another woman becoming the chief's daughter-in-law before her, Baba Gumbi continued. She wanted to control everything, and she knew that Malika, like you, was strong-willed, so she used a slow-acting poison. By the time Malika grew sick, no one suspected foul play. Tears burned Nyasha's eyes. How many lives had Jatira destroyed? How many innocent souls had suffered because of her jealousy? She clenched her fists. This was no longer just about her survival. The spirits of the wronged cried out for justice, and she would be their voice. Teach me, she said firmly, looking Baba Gumbi in the eye. I cannot go back unprepared. I must be stronger. Baba Gumbi gave a slow nod, pride gleaming in his eyes. Then you must train, not just in wisdom, but in strategy. A queen does not fight with weapons. She fights with knowledge and courage. And so, Nyasha's days became filled with lessons of leadership, healing, and power. She studied ancient herbal secrets, learned the ways of persuasion, and mastered the art of patience. When the time came for her return, she would not be the same woman Jatira tried to kill. She would be something far greater. A full year had passed, but Nyasha was no longer the same woman who had been thrown into the river like she was nothing. She had been reborn in the fires of knowledge and strength, molded by Baba Gumbi's wisdom and the lessons of the spirits who cried for justice. Now, she was ready. Dressed in the robes of a traveling healer, she stepped into the kingdom of Muira, her heart steady and her eyes sharp. The familiar streets buzzed with life, but the air felt different, darker, heavier. Whispers of suffering floated in the air like restless spirits. Jatira's rule had cast a shadow over the land. She moved through the marketplace unnoticed, her face hidden beneath a hood. She listened carefully, picking up bits of conversation from merchants and villagers. The chief's household is not what it used to be, one woman muttered. Ever since the young bride died, Jatira has taken control, another whispered. She rules, as if she is the queen herself. Nyasha's blood boiled, but she kept her face calm. She had expected this. Jatira had always craved power, and with Nyasha gone, nothing had stood in her way. She made her way toward the chief's household, the place she had once called home. But it no longer felt like a home. The once welcoming compound now carried an air of coldness. Servants walked with their heads bowed, fear etched in their faces. Nyasha spotted an old woman struggling to carry a basket of firewood. She rushed to help, her voice soft and kind. "Let me help you, Mama." The woman gasped, startled by the stranger's warmth. "Oh, thank you, child. These days, kindness is rare in this house." Nyasha's heart ached. "What has happened?" she asked. The woman sighed. "Jatira rules this household with an iron fist. She treats the servants like slaves, and the chief's wife, Muzi Sibona, has become her puppet." Her voice lowered. "And Chisomo, he is to remarry." Nyasha's breath caught. "Remarry?" The old woman nodded grimly. "Jatira has arranged for him to marry Raliza, her closest friend. A woman as cruel as she is." A sharp pain stabbed through Nyasha's heart, but she did not let it break her. Chisomo believed she was dead. He had no choice but to follow his mother and sister's wishes. But he would soon learn the truth. She took a deep breath and squared her shoulders. It was time to play her part. That evening, she presented herself at the palace gates as a wandering healer. "I bring rare medicines from distant lands," she told the guards. "I have come to offer my services." Jatira would never recognize her, not yet. She would enter the house unseen, moving like a shadow. She would listen, watch, and wait for the perfect moment. The time for justice was near. Nyasha, now known as Madewa, moved carefully through the village, her presence like a quiet wind that carried whispers of hope. Disguised as a humble healer, she tended to the sick, mended wounds, and shared her knowledge of herbs with those in need. The villagers, who had suffered under Jatira's cruel rule, spoke in hushed tones about the mysterious healer, whose hands brought relief and whose eyes held an unspoken power. "She is not just any healer," an old woman murmured to a friend. "She sees what others do not." Word of Madewa's skills spread quickly, reaching the ears of Jatira herself. At first, Jatira dismissed the rumors. She had always believed herself untouchable, the most powerful woman in the household. But as more people spoke of the healer's growing influence, Jatira's curiosity turned into suspicion. One afternoon, as the sun cast golden light over the land, a servant arrived at Nyasha's small hut. "The chief's daughter requests your presence at the palace," he said, bowing slightly. Nyasha kept her face unreadable. The time had come. When she arrived at the palace, she found Jatira lounging on a cushioned seat, adorned in the finest silk, her fingers heavy with golden rings. She studied Nyasha with narrowed eyes, trying to uncover what made this healer so special. "You are the one they call Madewa," Jatira said, tapping her long nails against the armrest. "They say you can cure even the most stubborn sickness." Nyasha bowed slightly. "I do what I can." Jatira smirked. "Then let us see if you are as skilled as they claim. Our dear mother has been unwell for some time. Perhaps you can help." Nyasha's pulse quickened. This was her chance. She followed Jatira to Muzi Sibona's chambers, where the once strong woman lay weak and frail, her skin pale, her breath shallow. Nyasha's heart ached at the sight. This was not just age or illness. This was poison. As she examined Muzi Sibona, she noticed the faint bitterness in her breath, the discoloration on her lips. These were clear signs of slow poisoning, the kind that weakened a person's mind and body over time. Nyasha met the old woman's tired eyes and whispered, "You will be well soon, Mama." She needed proof before making a move. That night, under the cover of darkness, she slipped through the palace halls, searching Jatira's chambers. There, hidden beneath silken cloths, she found small vials of dark liquid, poison, and beside them, wrapped in leather, were charms meant to control the mind, the kind used to bend a person's will. A rage unlike any she had ever felt surged through her. Jatira had not only poisoned her own mother, but had also used dark magic to manipulate Chisomo into marrying Raliza. Nyasha clenched her fists. Jatira thought she had won, but soon she would face the wrath of the woman she had tried to destroy. The night of the grand feast arrived, and the palace of Muira was alive with music, laughter, and the scent of roasted meat. Torches flickered in the warm evening air, casting long shadows over the gathered guests. Nobles, elders, and villagers had come to celebrate the upcoming wedding of Chisomo and Raliza, a union orchestrated by Jatira. Nyasha, still disguised as Madewa, moved through the crowd with quiet purpose. She carried a small pouch hidden within the folds of her healer's robes. Inside was a rare herb, one Baba Gumbi had taught her to use, capable of loosening the tongue and forcing the truth from even the most deceitful heart. As the feast reached its peak, servants moved through the gathering, pouring wine into golden cups. Nyasha took her chance, slipping the powdered herb into the goblets meant for Jatira and Raliza. With a satisfied smile, Jatira raised her cup, unaware of the trap. She had won. Nyasha was gone. Chisomo was under her control, and soon, Raliza would be his wife. She took a long sip, relishing her triumph. Raliza, too, drank greedily, basking in the wealth and power that awaited her. Moments later, it began. Jatira's fingers twitched, and her smile faltered. She opened her mouth, intending to take another bite of food, but instead, words spilled out, words she did not choose to say. "I killed her." The table fell silent. Jatira's eyes widened in horror as her own voice continued, beyond her control. "I pushed Nyasha into the river. She was too perfect, too loved. I wanted her gone." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Chisomo's hand tightened around his cup, his knuckles white. "What are you saying, Jatira?" But the words would not stop. "I poisoned Malika before she could marry Chisomo. I wanted her out of the way. I lied about Tando stealing. She was innocent, but I needed someone to blame." Muzi Sibona, weak and frail, sat up, her eyes filled with horror. The villagers murmured, their faces shifting from shock to anger. Jatira clapped her hands over her mouth, but it was too late. Raliza, who had been laughing moments before, suddenly stiffened. Her voice rose in panic. "I was part of it. Jatira promised me power. We used charms to control Chisomo. Realizing her mistake, Raliza shot to her feet and turned to run. But the guards had already surrounded her. "Seize them!" Chisomo's voice thundered through the palace. Jatira, the woman who had ruled with arrogance and cruelty, now trembled before the very people she had once controlled. As she looked around, her gaze landed on Nyasha, who was now stepping forward, pulling back her hood. The entire crowd gasped. The woman they had believed to be dead was standing before them, and justice was finally here. Jatira's body trembled as she fell to her knees before the elders of Muira. The weight of her crimes hung in the air like a heavy storm cloud, and the whispers of the villagers grew louder with every passing second. Faces that once showed her respect were now twisted in anger and disgust. "It was the spirits!" Jatira suddenly cried, her voice wild with desperation. "They controlled me. They made me do it. I would never harm my own brother's wife. You must believe me." But no one did. Muzi Sibona, who had once stood by Jatira's side, clutched her chest, her eyes filled with pain. She had turned against Nyasha, believing her daughter's lies. Now, the truth was, like a blade to her heart. "I was blind," she whispered, shaking her head. "I let you poison my mind. I let you fill my heart with hatred against an innocent woman. And now, look what you have done." Tears streamed down her wrinkled cheeks as she turned to Nyasha. "Forgive me, my child. I failed you." Nyasha, who had every right to hold on to her anger, took a deep breath. "You were deceived, Muzi Sibona, and deception can be powerful, but the truth has won today." The village elders stepped forward, their faces stern. "Jatira and Raliza," one of them declared, "for your crimes against Nyasha, Malika, Tando, and many others, we sentence you to exile. You will be sent to the River Kaluza, the very place where you tried to take Nyasha's life. Let the river judge you now." A cry of horror tore from Jatira's throat. "No, you cannot do this. I am the chief's daughter. Her protests were drowned out by the roar of the villagers, who had suffered under her cruelty for far too long. Raliza, trembling, tried to run, but the guards grabbed her arms. "Jatira, do something! We cannot go to that river. The currents are too strong." But for once, Jatira had no clever plan. No lies could save her now. Under the watchful eyes of the villagers, Jatira and Raliza were dragged to the edge of the mighty River Kaluza, the same river where Jatira had once stood, smiling as she pushed Nyasha into its depths. The waters churned, dark and restless, as if waiting for them. "No, please!" Jatira screamed, her once proud voice now filled with pure terror. She struggled, but the guards did not loosen their grip. As the two women were forced into the river, the moment their feet touched the raging water, a powerful wave surged forward, swallowing them whole. Their screams were lost in the roar of the river. The villagers watched in silence as the current carried them away, their figures disappearing beneath the churning depths. Karma had finally spoken, and justice had been served. The air in Muira was thick with emotions, shock, relief, and a newfound respect for the woman who had returned from the dead. As the last echoes of Jatira and Raliza's screams faded into the roar of the River Kaluza, the villagers turned their eyes toward Nyasha. Chisomo stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. His mind refused to believe it, but his eyes could not deny the truth. The healer he had heard so much about, the mysterious woman who had exposed Jatira's wickedness, was none other than his beloved wife, Nyasha, the wife he had thought he lost forever. His legs felt weak as he took a step forward, then another, and then, unable to hold back his emotions, he fell to his knees before her. "Nyasha!" His voice broke as he looked up at her, his eyes filled with sorrow. "I thought you were gone. I should have searched harder. I should have protected you." Nyasha studied him, her heart torn between love and the pain of betrayal. "You believed I was dead and moved on," she said, her voice steady. "You let Jatira control everything, even your heart." Chisomo lowered his head in shame. "I was blind. I let them deceive me. But I swear to you, I never stopped loving you." Muzi Sibona stepped forward, her hands trembling. She had been a proud woman once, believing she could never be wrong. But now, standing before the daughter-in-law she had once mistreated, she felt nothing but regret. "Nyasha, my child," she whispered, "I failed you. I allowed my own jealousy and foolishness to cloud my heart. I was so afraid of losing my family's power that I pushed away the one person who truly deserved to be part of it." She swallowed hard, tears filling her aged eyes. "Can you ever find it in your heart to forgive me?" Nyasha studied them both, the weight of their words pressing against her soul. The pain they had caused her had been deep, but so had her journey of healing and strength. She had learned not to let the past define her, but instead to use it to shape a better future. She took a deep breath. "I have seen darkness, and I have survived it. I have been betrayed, and yet I have found my way back. I will not let hate live in my heart." Her voice was firm yet warm. "I forgive you, Muzi Sibona, and Chisomo. If I take my place as your wife again, it will be as your equal, not as a weak woman to be controlled, but as a partner in life." Chisomo's eyes filled with admiration. "You are more than my wife, Nyasha. You are my strength, my guide, my queen. I vow to honor you, to respect you, and to never let anyone dim your light again." A cheer erupted from the villagers. They hailed Nyasha not just as Chisomo's wife, but as a woman of wisdom, resilience, and strength. The woman who had faced death and returned, stronger than ever. As the sun set over Muira, a new chapter began, not just for Nyasha, but for the entire village. The village of Muira had seen many rulers, but none like Nyasha. She was not just a queen by marriage, she was a queen by spirit, by strength, and by wisdom. With Jatira and Kaluza gone, the darkness that once loomed over the household had lifted. But Nyasha knew that true change did not come from removing the wicked. It came from ensuring that no one else suffered as she had. She refused to let her survival be just a personal victory. It had to mean something greater. She transformed the palace into a place of justice, kindness, and wisdom. No servant was mistreated. No woman was silenced. She used the knowledge she had gained from Baba Gumbi to heal the sick, to teach the young, and to guide the lost. People traveled from distant villages to seek her counsel. Women who had suffered in silence found their voices under her rule. Even the elders, who had once overlooked the cruelty happening within their own walls, now sought her guidance. Muse Sibona, forever changed by her mistakes, stood by Nyasha's side, no longer as a mother-in-law filled with suspicion, but as a woman who had learned from her errors. She spent her days helping the poor and honoring the memory of those she had once ignored. Chisomo, humbled by everything that had happened, became the husband Nyasha deserved. He no longer let pride or tradition dictate his actions. Instead, he ruled beside his wife, knowing that strength did not come from power alone, but from wisdom, fairness, and love. As the moon rose high one evening, Nyasha stood at the riverbank where her fate had once been decided. But she was not afraid. She was not broken. She was whole. She closed her eyes and whispered the names of Tando and Malika. The wind carried their names across the water, and in that moment, she knew they had found peace. Their suffering had not been in vain. Justice had been served, and their spirits could finally rest. The people of Muira no longer spoke of Nyasha as the woman who had been thrown into the river. They spoke of her as the queen who had risen from it, the queen who had turned pain into power, the queen who had proven that truth always wins and karma never forgets. And so, Muira thrived under her rule, not through fear, not through force, but through the strength of a woman who had faced the worst and emerged unbreakable. Jealousy destroys the jealous, not the victim. No evil deed goes unpunished. Karma will always return. A kind heart, when tested by fire, emerges stronger than ever.